Okay, we're going to get started. Good evening. My name is Albert Simon, and I'm the Steward Pro Tem of Owens Chapel AME Church. So welcome to the 21st presentation of Kwanzaa. This is our third year bringing this delightful program to you. We hope it gives you an insightful blessing. The developer of this program was a Dr. Mwala Kuringa. He says it is our duty to know our past and to honor it, to engage our present and improve it, and to imagine a whole new future and forge it in the most ethical, effective, and expansive ways. So beginning December the 26th and lasting for 7 days, Kwanzaa is a celebration of community, family, and culture, established as a means to help African Americans to reconnect their African roots and heritage. This evening is the second day. Beginning again, it is a time for communal self-affirmation when famous heroes and heroines, as well as late family members, are celebrated. The service begins with a prayer given by myself. Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Bless us with this blessing. Make this lesson and this program spread throughout the entire world and the human population. This I ask in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Next, we'll light candles. Next, we'll listen to the Kwanzaa song. I think we've been listening to it all the time. You go ahead and do it again. What happened to me? Celebration. Kwanzaa. Celebration. Day of Kwanzaa, we call it Umoja, unity, unity. The second day of Kwanzaa, Abulia, self-determination. The third day of Kwanzaa, we call it Ujima, collective work and responsibility. The fourth day of Kwanzaa, we call it Ujima, cooperative economics. The fifth day of Kwanzaa, we call it Nia, purpose, purpose. I have a purpose. The sixth day of Kwanzaa, we call it Kuumba, creativity, creativity. The last day of Kwanzaa, we say Imani, that's what we call Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa, celebration. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa, celebration.
celebration. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa, celebration. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa, celebration.
This evening's speaker will be introduced by the pastor, Reverend Warren Robinson.
Good evening. In the African tradition, you always go to your elders for permission. You may teach, you may speak, you may do anything you want to, but go to your elders.
We
Can
can't
you
hear you.
Donna?
Can't hear you. Got to be louder.
Is that any better? All right. So before you do anything, you go to the elders in your community to ask for permission. The elders brought you here. They got you this far. You go to them for permission. And in some traditions, you have a libation as you ask for that permission, as you ask for that respect for your elders to go and to make a presentation. So in the tradition that I learned, you make a libation, and the libation can be drinking, or you can take fluids and put it on a plant. And you say Ashe, which is almost like Amen. Elders, we ask for your permission that we may teach, that we may engender others to grow in your wisdom and in your knowledge. Ashe.
Ashe.
Give us strength, give us wisdom, give us the forbearance to do what you would have us to do. Ashe. Our speaker this evening is well known to me. I grew up with her in Portland, Oregon. Since that time, she has distinguished herself by going to Pacific University, where she graduated. And then she taught for many, many years. Any teachers in the audience? Yeah, there's several. So after teaching and retiring, she developed a fascinating program called Race Talks. You know, race is a difficult thing in this country to talk about. There have been so many horrendous things that have happened to people of color that it's difficult to talk about. So Donna started her program so people may engage in a conversation that is not of violence, but of collaboration, of cooperation. It's difficult. And so she's kept Race Talks going for many, many years, allowing people from different nationalities and different racial groups and different political groups to dialogue together. So we've asked her this evening to make her presentation. And we'll talk about Race Talks later. In fact, we may have her on later in the year to do something special. But I introduced my friend of many, many, many years, Donna Maxey.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Go.
All right. I'll even start the timer. My name's Donna Maxey. I am the founder, executive director of Race Talks, soon to be director emeritus. Race Talks is an organization that I started with an impassioned fever, because what happened to us last year, January 6th, in this country, I saw it coming about 20 years ago. And it was at that time that I found out that we had, there were going to be more people of color in the United States than there were white people. So I knew that this was not going to go well, that we needed to learn to talk to each other, that if we didn't start an open conversation about race and develop relationship. I always say there's the R, the big R is the most important, relationship. If we didn't have a relationship with other people, that there was going to be bloodshed. And so the goal is to make sure that people can talk and talk about everything. As those of you who are of color know, race is in every category. Everything that we do is affected by race. And so Race Talks has been careful to have all kinds of conversations. We've had Robbie, who came and was a facilitator for our programs. What's different about Race Talks is we have the first hour folks who talk about a topic, whatever the topic is. And then the second hour, we have small discussion groups led by people trained to lead discussions about race. I want you to know this is very difficult for me tonight to just sit and talk to you and not have you involved in active conversation. But Robbie told me they didn't have the technology yet to do that. So suck it up and just talk. So I'm excited to be here this evening. The former ladies who spoke were both ladies of the cloth, and I thought I would infuse a little bit of my knowledge about the Bible in this speech with you. When I was thinking about putting this together, Kwanzaa is about collective work and responsibility, and it made me think of Paul and all of the letters that he wrote to the Corinthians and the Ephesians and the Galatians, and how they all were a secret community developing what at that time was a sect or a culture, that a cult or a culture that became worldwide and became Christianity. So they worked together to make, and started from a small secret group to work together to bring about collective work and responsibility and to spread the word of Jesus and his works. Ron Karenga 50 years ago started Kwanzaa, and he felt that we needed to have a celebration that was for Black people, to give us a sense of community, to give us a sense of pride. So Kwanzaa is really about developing the different tenets of Kwanzaa are to help us develop a relationship with each other so that we work together, that we understand what's important, that it's not so much about the gifts, although there are gifts given. It's recommended that gifts be handmade, and it's also recommended that it be books, primarily for the children. So we're very excited. And as a teacher, that's my favorite thing to give, are books. So Dr. Maulana Ron Karenga did us a great favor in helping develop this program. I was looking at some quotes that he had earlier today. And of course, I wrote it down and put it somewhere that I don't have it right now. But he talked about it was important for us to work together, and that people have to develop their community and work together and solve their own community's issues. So I'm excited by the gathering of people that I see here for tonight's presentation, because it's a mixed group of people, and that's the only way we're going to solve our problems. Men, women, white, Black, brown, Muslims, Christians, all of us coming together to make this work. What I like about Kwanzaa is the collective work and responsibility. Robbie and I come from families where we had parents that as young people were very responsible. When he says I'm his old friend, he means
Donna, you're muted.
uh-oh, was I muted the whole?
Yeah. Oh, you muted again. Not the whole time.
Okay, so that's really crazy. Okay, so where did I leave off?
You said Robbie and you were came up in a community about, you know.
Okay. All right, I can start back there. Robbie and I have been friends for a long time. In fact, we call ourselves crib mates. We were in the crib together. And there's another person who was in there with us, Sharon Gary. So we go back a long way. And a good portion of what our relationship is about is our parents, because they all went to the same church, Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Portland. And we're active in the community in providing, doing collective work and being responsible. Our parents were young when we were born, in their late, in their 20s and 30s, and they still took on the responsibility of being members of the community that provided a service. When we talk about collective work and responsibility, the tenet says it's to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and solve them together. If you look at the symbol for Ujima, it looks like an X with shovels on the end of each one of the crossbars. And I think that's quite appropriate for collective work and responsibility. That means we're all got a shovel. We're all working to get out of the trouble or the problems that we have and to overcome the issues together. So we build and maintain our community together. Robbie wanted me to talk about another thing that Robbie and I have in common is that our parents owned grocery stores, and we worked in those grocery stores as young children and had a real responsibility in the family and taking care of the business. But what I'd really like to talk about is how I came to get together collectively with a couple of ministers here in Portland. I had worked with, we had had race talks for 2 or 3 years already, and I decided that we needed to have another one. We had a lot of issues with the police. Our brothers and sisters were being arrested regularly. Some were being killed by the police. And so we felt that we needed to have some work on that. So I got together with 2 ministers in Portland, the late Reverend T. Allen Bethel, who was the pastor of Maranatha Church, which is a non-denominational church, and Reverend Dr. Leroy Haynes, who was the pastor of Allen Temple CME Church. And what's so interesting about those 2 ministers is that they already were working together collectively. Reverend Haynes' church had a fire. And so he came over and held church at the building where Reverend Bethel was. And so his congregation had services in the afternoon. Reverend Bethel's congregation had services in the morning. And they worked together on everything. They also formed an organization called the Albina, I just went blank on the name, Albina, I want to say the Albina Coalition, but they worked, Albina is the name of the Black community here in Portland, and they came together to work with the police to see if we could have a more peaceful resolution to issues in the community. So I went to them and said, let's start doing a race talks with the police. And I already had a relationship with the school district that I had retired from. So we went to different high schools, high schools, and invited the police to come and invited the community to come. We didn't have a lot of people who came to those, but they did. There were a few people who came. The most notable one that I remember was when we were at Wilson High School, which was the wealthiest high school in Portland area. And I had invited some young men that I knew, one of whom had been one of my former students, to come and be a part of the program. And they were Black Panthers. And I invited them to come to the program. And so they did come. And it was very interesting because the people who were from the police department were management, but they all had their suits on, not their police suits, but their dress clothes. And of course, they were all carrying guns. And I'm sure the Panthers also had theirs. But it was a very peaceful conversation. In fact, the young men came and they thought they would decided to leave. And I said, no, I want you to come, sit down, be a part of this. And the young man that I knew, I reassured him that I would not be disrespectful to him, and had never been. And I expected the same from him for me. And so they all stayed. They stayed, they had something to eat, and they all broke up into small discussion groups and had conversation. Also at that particular meeting was Assistant Chief of Police Modica, who was an African-American man, and for the first time I had ever heard, apologized to the Black community for the damage that the police department had done to the community that was unwarranted. And so that was very significant. Also at that meeting was Joanne Hardesty, who became the first Black woman to be on city council in Portland. And she was a community activist that has done many things to help with collective work and responsibility. So I have a quick question for all of you, and this has to do with collective work and responsibility. It's always a good idea to say, oh, I want to go start this. I want to work with people. I want to change how things are. And, but there's something you need to do first. So I have a question, and this was about knowing your neighbors. Now, how many of you think you know your neighbors? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, I see one hand in the air. So let me tell you when I say, do you know your neighbors? I mean, do you know 3 on your left, 3 on your right, and 3 in front of you? And by know, I mean, you know their name, they know your name. You've been in their house, they've been in your house. You know their phone number, they know your phone number. How many of you know 9 sets of neighbors and have that information? So I don't have any hands up. And the problem with that is, how can we go out and change the world if we do not have the courage to reach out to our neighbors, the people who live closest to us? Think about it. Depending on how far your house is from your property line, and I have a very small house, so the distance between my house to my neighbor's house is the width of about 2 cars, and about 1.5 feet, and about a 1.5 feet of wall between them and me. So go out, get to know your neighbors. If there's an emergency, and there will be an emergency, and it always seems to happen at 3 o'clock at night, always in the middle of the night, the baby's sick, the water pipes burst, you're having a heart attack, all of those things. Seems like 3 o'clock is the witching hour. If you need help, you're not going to be able to always get to the people that you know that live 5, 10, 15, or 100 miles away. You're going to have to go to your neighbors for help. And if your neighbors don't know you, they're not going to open the door. They're not going to be able to help you. So reach out to your neighbors. I put a challenge out to all of you tonight to meet your neighbors. Go to each one of your neighbors and introduce yourself. Even though it's COVID, go with your mask, knock on the door, introduce yourself. Tell them who you are. Find out their name and number. Every new neighbor that comes into the community I go over, I know they think I'm this crazy little old lady. Hi there, what's your name and number? I need to know who you are. You could be an axe murderer. You don't look like it, you look pretty good. So I just want to know your name and number and give you mine in case something comes up. And inevitably something does come up. You know, maybe they left the window open and they've gone on vacation. Maybe they, you know, someone's crawling around their house. I've had all of these kinds of things happen, you know, where we knew the neighbors and we were able to stop the problem. But until you get to know your neighbors, it's not going to happen. And just to mess with them this Christmas, I made little individual loaves of banana nut bread, and went to every house on the street and knocked on the door and gave them a loaf of banana nut bread. So that was my invitation to them to open up, get to know the neighbors so that we can be collective and take responsibility for each other's welfare and well-being. I'd like to really encourage you to do that and to be a part of the solution. You don't need money to do it. I have been doing race talks now. We're going into our 12th year, and I have not gotten a paycheck for doing race talks. Fortunately, I was able to finance it through my retirement, but I also brought in other people, a local business that helped me, and a local organization that was doing conversations about race. So people will help you. They will help do collective work. They just sometimes need someone to reach out to them and give them the courage to speak up and be a part of the solution. Thank you for helping to make this a better world. And I appreciate being asked to come and speak tonight. Thank you. Oh, and before I forget, thank you. Gaby is going to put on a song. This is I think this is a theme song from the movie Harriet. And I think it really exemplifies what we're trying to say about what we need to do with collective work and responsibility.
Get this one, babe. We're gonna do the,
Can you take questions before we play the music?
What did you say, Robbie?
Can you take questions before we play the music?
Sure.
Anybody want to ask questions? Yeah. Okay.
You have to speak real loud. It's not gonna work there fast. You have to almost speak directly into this. But tell me your question and I'll ask her.
I'd like to know if you went to your neighbors and they do not wish to know you, what do you do?
You just keep being kind and you keep doing things. When you see that their garbage can is turned over, pick it up. If you see their newspaper is in their front yard, toss it up on their porch. You know, you can kill even the nastiest people with kindness. So you just keep on doing good works. Eventually it erodes that nastiness.
I've lived there 40 years and they've still not acknowledged me. And I do the things that you say, including I've made them meals when the lady was sick and got nothing. So I'm giving up.
So do you only have one set of neighbors?
No, I have 3.
And all 3 of them have been like that?
Yes.
That's when you drop a little secret present on their porch and keep it moving.
And
Send them
also-
a card that says Merry Christmas. Well, I'm serious, you know, some people's hearts are hard and you just keep it up until you just wear them down.
No, they're just snobs. I'm sorry, but they are. They think they're better than anybody else.
There's people like that in the world.
Yeah, but I have to,
Just pray for them and send them on.
Anyone else?
If you lived in a little bit louder.
If you lived in a community, like she said, over 40 years.
I can't hear.
Yeah.
The question is, if you lived in the community for 4 years.
Well, maybe just a year, and still, the people see you, but they don't speak to you. How do you get those?
If you live in a community and you're reaching out and people don't speak to you. You want to.
So when you walk past those people, you nod and say hello and keep going.
mine are always in vehicles.
Next question, or see if anybody on the panel has a question. See your hand up.
since they're looking for the film, I will say this to you in the meantime. You cannot let other people bring you down to their level. You just keep being you and being wonderful.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to make a comment or question? Please
Yeah.
unmute.
I would. Yeah. My name is Mary Ellen, and I want to thank you, Donna. It was, you're obviously a very powerful person and a very loving person. I want to thank you.
Thank
Your talk was lovely. And a question for Warren. Are you going to start these race talks in our area?
Donna is an expert in this. She's had many years of this, but with your help, Mary Ellen, and with Donna, sure, we can get it started. It takes courage, but she worked on this for many years, and she's good at it. So yes, we're gonna involve her and have race talks here in the Alamogordo area.
I hope so. Thank
We'd love to do that. We'll keep you informed. In fact, I'll put in the chat our Race Talks website, and then you can go to the website and join us for our talks. We have a talk every month,
Right.
every second Tuesday now. We're doing it on Zoom. Like I said, we're going into our 12th year. So I'll put the website on. You can go to the website and sign up to hear what our conversation is. Our next one is, I think, let me look at the calendar, January 11th. And it's about critical race theory.
Yeah.
So since, it's the thing that all white people don't like, the ones who have objections, they don't like it, but they don't know what it is. So we thought we would have a program explaining what it is. So.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you.
That's a good topic.
I would love to know what that's about personally.
You have to speak nicely loud.
I said, I would love to find out about that and, know about that.
I think, you know what I think? I think that Pastor Warren needs to have the TV set up in this fellowship hall for race talks on January 11th, and you guys can all be a part of it. It's going to be kind of late for you though, because it starts at 7 o'clock here, which will be 8 o'clock your time. But you think that's a possibility, Robbie?
I have my marching orders. Thank you, Donna.
Hey, I'm good at volunteering people. Okay.
I have a question for you, Donna.
Yes.
Do you have a set of procedures or technology that you use when you bring people together for these race talks?
Oh, we use a lot of procedures, yes. And I like to say that I have been a social justice worker since in utero. So, and Robbie has too. Our parents were on it before we were born. And so there are some lessons that we learned from childhood, from life. I've done a lot of work. I had my administrative credential as a principal, and also have done a lot of work around the issues of race. So there's a lot of techniques, and we're looking for facilitators. And so we would train, if we come down there and work in your area, we would have trained people to be facilitators. Mm-hmm. And what we really want is to get young people, teenagers, 20s, into the 30s. My daughter's getting ready to take over the program. Will soon be 46. I told her she's too old. We need teenagers in there working on this stuff. So we will. I'll talk to Robbie about it. We'll get it going. But I think a good place to start would be January 11th to have a program that in the parish, so that you can all see what it is.
Thanks, Donna. This is Pastor Barrett. I'd like to thank you for sharing your collective work in the community, and I'm looking forward to your future race talks.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
And then we have another person here that I'd like to know, has anything changed since you started your program?
I can hear someone, but I can't hear what they're saying.
Okay.
Go ahead.
A person would like to know, since you started doing what you're doing, has anything changed within the community?
Yes.
And the police.
We have worked with, we have, I can talk. I've done this before. Hold on. I'm sorry. We have had Race Talks for 11 years. And in that time, we've had almost 200 programs because we had 2 programs going. And we have served over 20,000 people. Some of what has happened is that people are starting to talk to each other. There have been other people who have started their own programs of a similar nature or had book studies. At one time we were doing movies where people could come and we go to the local McMenamins restaurant, which is one of my sponsors for the program. And so, yes, we have seen change. We've seen committees that have come on to the police department. My daughter's on one of the oversight committees for folks. Some of the police who were there, they have to communicate, and it has made a difference. We have a new Black police chief. We've had 2 since I've been since I started the Race Talks program, who were non-white. One was a woman. And I know my next door neighbor told me I've changed her. We go for walks sometimes. She's a young woman, she's 37. We'll go for walks. She goes, I find myself smiling and speaking to people now, and you've changed me. I'm not the way I used to be, where I just walked down the street and I didn't pay attention. And she was sharing that she and her next door neighbor were having a conversation and that they've only talked one time. She's been here a year. So people start reaching out to each other. We started having block parties when the pandemic hit. We'd go outside and sit on our stoops and talk to each other. And these are all young people here, and they're all white. And you know, it's like, come on now, y'all need to get to know each other. You know, if there's an emergency, we need to know what's going on. So people do change. It takes time. It takes time. There's 2 basic emotions, love and fear. And all other emotions come from those 2. And if you're not reaching out in love, then you're acting in fear. And so just continue to reach out in love.
Why is it y'all, why is it that you don't want older people involved in it more?
Oh, it's not that I don't want older people involved, I do.
Some of them are the ones that have more issues.
No, listen, honey, I'm 73, so it's not an issue. No, the idea is that what we have found at Race Talks, 67, I'm in Portland, Oregon, which is the whitest major city in the United States. And 67% of our audience is white. About 1/3 is people of color. And most of the people who come are in their 40s, 50s, in their 50s, 60s, and college educated. That's great that those are older people, but we need people who are younger also. We need, you know, kids in school. Our programs are open to everyone. We've had them from 3 weeks to 100 years old come to the program. So, and participate in the conversation. Some of the best conversations have been young people. One of my former students who is now in her 40s and she has kids in school. Her daughter was in 3rd grade when she started bringing her to Race Talks, and she participated in the conversations. We've had speakers at Race Talks of all ages. We did one about the Oregon Trail and how some students at one of the local elementary schools was fighting the injustice that they saw in the programming for 4th graders. And so they came and they spoke and talked about it. What we're trying to do is to train, how do I say this? I got my administrative credential when I was in my 50s, and after I got it, I realized I was too old to be a principal. that what you want is someone who is younger, in their 20s, 30s, so they can grow with the district and can be on the ground level making change. So the goal is to start with young people. So if people learn these techniques, how to lead discussions, how to reach out to others, how to be peaceful when they're young, then we don't have to worry about them learning those techniques when they get older. And as you know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Donna. My name is Carolyn. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I enjoyed your presentation, but my question is, with your collective work, have you all been able to get buy-in from maybe the business community to get funding to expand your programming or your educational lessons that you have?
I could. I didn't. One of the reasons that I didn't, and this is a personal issue, I have been a part of my mother's caregiving team, and she had a stroke and was so for 24 years. So I had enough juice to help be a part of her caregiving team and to run the program, but not to go out and do fundraising. And one of the things that's very interesting that I have found, I did apply for a few grants. I got a grant writer. People didn't like the way I was doing things. They wanted me to, they preferred that I go out and organize people. They preferred that the talks be a certain way. And Robbie knows me, and I am intergenerationally independent, you know, as in grandparents, great grandparents, parents. It's, you don't get to tell me how to do stuff. And if I find that this is the best way to do it, then I would rather put the program on for free and make sure that the elements that I think are important for people to get be presented than to get money from organizations that are going to put the kibosh on what I can say and do. So we have had some funding, and what we've really found is that this last year, since my daughter has been acting as director more, we've done more private consulting. So we've done consulting with businesses, churches, schools, colleges, individual groups. So yeah, but yes, you can get funding. And I decided not to be a nonprofit. I am under the aegis of some other organizations as a nonprofit entity, but I did not get my own nonprofit status because of a situation that happened here in Portland. There was a sister who had an organization, and some incidences came up in her organization, and she had worked. In fact, she was one of the points of light, I think it was, for Oprah. Remember, Oprah had those people she would bring on her show, and she was highlighting their programs. Well, this woman was one of those people. And some problems came down, and her nonprofit board voted her out from her organization. So I was real hesitant about doing that. What we are going to do, though, we just got the idea behind this, and my daughter has the skills to do these things, is we're going to have both a for-profit and a nonprofit side, so that we can do the facilitator training and have the have that be the nonprofit side. But then we can still do the consulting, which can be for profit, and then we can also sell franchise the Race Talks program for and that can be for profit. So you can still do both sides.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Thompson, and I have a question. Were you and your organization involved in trying to stem or to kind of help relieve some of the tension that happened in Portland this year, especially after the Rittenhouse verdict came down?
We were not involved with the Rittenhouse. We had, after George Floyd, we hadn't had any race talks for a couple of months. And so McMenamins came to us and said, hey, are we going to have a program? You know, what are you guys going to do now that this George Floyd has happened? So we said, we were thinking about a program, but we don't have the facility, you know, the wherewithal. And so we put together a program in 3 days and came up just with everyone to talk about what were their feelings, what was going on, how were they feeling about everything. McMenamins had a person who is now one of our employees because they had to lay all their people off because everything shut down because of COVID. She learned Zoom in less than 24 hours. And we had put on a Zoom program. We had 500 people who signed up for the program and 350 who came, and put people into individual rooms and had discussions in those individual rooms. So yeah, we do talk about all of the latest topics. And when we have the discussion groups, our discussion group, I usually put questions together for the discussion groups for the facilitators to talk about. But if people in that group want to talk about something else, then they can talk about whatever else it is that they as a group decide upon to do. And it's important. The important part is not so much that we talk about the topic, but that we be talking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything? Okay.
We're gonna turn on your music now, Donna.
All right.
And who is the performer again?
This is Willie Spence. He
Okay.
he was a finalist for American Idol, and I can't talk after Willie because I always cry. This young brother has been anointed. When you hear his voice, you'll know what I mean. You got it, Gaby?
Bear with me. I'm getting there.
Okay. Here we go.
For me, I do this for my family, you know. They've always supported me. They've been there from the very beginning.
Gaby, it's at 1 hour, 7 minutes, 42 seconds.
Thank you.
But for everyone out there looking at you, very proud of you, my friend.
We are so proud of you. So proud of you. And then seeing you with your mother, it just melted my heart.
Thank you. Take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. I've been walking from a place turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my head. I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, when I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, and so when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Across the river, you will freedom calling, calling me to answer, but I keep on keeping on. I know to prepare a place for you. I know to prepare a place for you. Take up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new world. Across the river, you can keep on me. All you need to answer, keep on giving on. I can feel it in my blood.
Thank you, Gaby.
You're welcome. Okay, everyone. It's not 7 o'clock just yet. Do you want to come over?
Thank you for attending our third evening. We will see you tomorrow night, where Dr. Abachi will actually be broadcasting from Africa, and we would love to have you interact with him. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, we look forward to them. Until then, peace.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Donna. Have a good night.
Dr. Abate.
Yeah, good night, my dear.
Good night.